We see a lot of customers coming to us trying to explain what their needs are. And it's clear that, what they do today with the internet, it brings low upfront cost, right? And global reach, which is good, but it introduces substantial hidden cost, right? And certainly when you scale it, you pay some kind of internet tax, which quickly can flip around your return on investment. You should ask the question, what's the cost of a service degradation? What's the cost of security breach, DDoS attack, and what is your overall TCO, the cost for fighting security threats? Mm-hmm. And once you go into that direction, you start the conversations with your customers. It's clear that they have interest into moving their traffic to a private backbone.
Welcome to Bits, Bytes, and Beyond, the podcast that takes you beyond the buzzwords and deep into the real-world challenges of moving your data. I'm Trent Blakely, Head of Product Marketing at PCCW Global Console Connect. In each episode, we'll unpack a specific technical subject, break down what's really going on, and explore how to solve it. Whether you're a CIO, a network engineer, or simply the person who always gets asked, is it the network? Then you're in the right place. This isn't thought leadership, it's technical leadership. Now let's get into it. And today my guest is Bart Coppens. He is the Vice President of Solution Engineering for our mobility products and has a history as a product manager, a background in telecoms, electrical engineering. And Bart, you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Trent. Yes, I'm Bart Coppens. I'm based in Belgium. My focus is mostly mobility engineering, focusing on SMS, IPX, GRX products, but also, last but not least, and I believe it's part of this discussion, IoT.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, maybe a fun fact about Bart, he played a critical role in the invention of one of our products, EdgeSIM, which we'll probably won't touch on too much, but it may come up during our conversation. Well, I guess to kick it off, we want to kind of dive into what is happening in the industry and, especially around IoT. How do you design IoT solution architectures that can avoid traffic exposure to the public internet?
It's actually not an easy question to answer because what we see in the field is that there is more than one party involved in building end-to-end private connectivity and to bypass the internet. First of all, you have the MNOs, the parties that owns a SIM profile, the packet gateways, and specifically, for the enterprise, they offer also out-of-the-box APN services, which in fact is the anchor point for the enterprise to break out that traffic to a private environment. So any party who wants to manage, the traffic needs to onboard such an APN and segregate the traffic. Now, the traffic for a given APN is routed onto the breakout, which we call the SGI interface. But instead of going to the internet, the traffic is routed onto a specific separate logical VLAN. And this is your secure entry point for breaking out to a private leg. So this is very important to understand. So those functions already exist, and the mobile carriers already support this. There are other functions which are really important, such as connectivity management, radius integration. There's a lot of things, billing integrations. There's a lot of things that happens to ensure that you can actually serve the customer. And that the customer, can manage, the connectivity in a smooth way. So it's important to understand that those building blocks exist on the MNO side. Now, the challenge is on the breakout because we want to expose the traffic onto a VLAN and send the traffic to a destination or to an ecosystem. And that's more difficult for the MVNOs to achieve because their exposure is rather limited. It's very complex for them to scale the breakout and manage, the ecosystem. It's not their bread and butter. So their standard offering is mostly big pipes for the enterprise for specific use cases. And in the majority, it's just internet. It's just the internet breakout. So I believe that there is a role for the NAS techos, the enablers that are actually exposing a real ecosystem. And I believe that those SDN orchestrators, which they operate, they could be managing that mobility side as well, like they do it for the cloud providers. Mm-hmm. And this is very important. So you need actually two parties to join and to connect to each other. That's what I think is very important. So in fact, you need some level of integration with the MNO and the telco providers that enables network as a service. And to manage this, you need to leverage common ground. You need to use those existing building blocks, which I just mentioned, and use the building blocks of the NAS provider and bring them together.
No, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and the aim is to onboard many SIM profiles and breakouts. So you want to make it simple. So you don't need a heavy lift integration. You want to make it as simple as possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just for clarity for our listeners, the APN in this case is access point name. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So yeah, I guess as you're designing these IoT solutions and architecting, what should connect to what and how should it work, what sort of trade-offs are become clear between things like cost and scalability and isolation, security? How do we decide? I'm sure it's use case driven. But can you tell us more about that?
That's also a very good question, because at this point in time, the partnerships I just mentioned, they're not widely adopted. And the majority of the use cases, they still explore their options with legacy internet, right? That's their default at this point in time. So it's very difficult for us, to move and tell the customers and tell them that, they have to change. But it is coming. We see a lot of customers coming to us trying to explain what their needs are. And it's clear that, what they do today with the internet, it brings low upfront cost, right? And global reach, which is good, but it introduces substantial hidden cost, right? And certainly when you scale it, you pay some kind of internet tax, which quickly can flip around your return on investment. You should ask the question, what's the cost of a service degradation? What's the cost of security breach, DDoS attack? And what is your overall TCO, the cost for fighting security threats? Mm-hmm. And once you go into that direction, you start the conversations with your customers. It's clear that they have interest into moving their traffic to a private backbone.
That's such a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the other element is the scaling. You should ask the questions, how difficult it is to manage 10,000 unique VPN tunnels and how to manage their certificates. It's very complex. So there's also discussion about overlay versus underlay. And it's clear that, with private breakouts, you can just simply use the underlay and forget about those VPN tunnels. So we already have use cases today that are going into this direction.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was hoping you could maybe walk us through, a real deployment where private connectivity solved various problems, whether it was, a data security problem or a compliance issue.
There are a few certainly, for the last subject here for the VPN tunnels. There is a use case with wireless cache machines. A vertical, that wants as well private breakout for IoT. It creates a new value proposition for them to provide a secure blueprint for offering ATM as a service. And so the ATM can connect without actually having an overlay. It can use the underlay straight to the bank. So this is just one example.
That is a great one. No, I imagine that's fairly common or fairly pervasive. Lots of banks, lots of ATMs all over the world.
Yeah. Also, if you look in the in the industrial manufacture or the energy industry, certainly the ones that moved into Industry 4.0, smart factory. It's also them, they require a secure and well-balanced ecosystem that needs to be reachable, omnidirectional. You can have SIM to cloud, cloud to SIM, SIM to data center, any kind of flows. And it's clear that it's very complex to achieve that through the internet. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's another great example. Yeah. Okay. The next thing I wanted us to touch on was how is identity management done when you rely on private APNs and programmable SDN layers instead of VPN tunnels?
Well, it's clear that in the most integrations which we see today, we map actually an IMSI to a static IP address. And that IP address lives within a given subnet, which is attached to the APN. These networks prefixes could then be, they could be advertised to the layer 3 VPN. So that means that your identity is being spread, over your L3 VPN, which is very, very, very simple, right? The complexity is on the SDN layer because you need an SDN controller to automate, the IP segmentation and classification, to orchestrate those IP addresses, those IMSIs. But I believe that existing next-gen SDN controllers like we have are able to facilitate that easily. Mm. Yeah. So this is one thing. Now you want to deliver this on demand, and this is another thing that we are exploring as well. So an APN is a subnet, right? And provisioning an APN on the mobile side is not that easy because it requires provisioning. It requires the DNS services to be synced. So it takes some time. So we have decided to slice an APN. So to slice the given subnet of an APN into smaller subnets, and we share the APN across multiple customers. And this allows us to spin up immediately services to the customers on demand. So we don't need to wait for a new APN to come on board. We can just share the APN across multiple customers. Yeah.
Brilliant. So no, that sounds way better.
Yeah. So the answer to your question is yes and yes. I believe each SIM-enabled device can be reached through an IP address directly. It's somehow complex for the SDN orchestrator, but the outcome is that you expose the identity to a multi-cloud environment, which is a very, very key requirement for the verticals. And the mapping could be retrieved through a dashboard or through APIs. So you could go to a portal and see which IMSI is mapped with which static IP address. Mm-hmm. Isn't that beautiful, Trent?
Totally beautiful. I love it. No, and you mentioned multi-cloud, right? That's becoming the default architecture of choice that I think everyone, or 90% of enterprises are headed in that direction, at least, whether that's multiple private or multiple public clouds.
Yeah, and if you think how you can do this with internet, guess what? Forget about it. It's going to be a painful exercise. Trust me.
Absolutely. Okay. Switching gears just a little bit. So you mentioned MNOs and MVNOs. Like, what are some of those common challenges that they face when they're implementing sort of out of the box APNs?
So the MNOs, they at this point in time, they're really focusing on the rollout of 5G non-standalone and 5G standalone. That's what they're doing. And they are trying to explore new revenue streams to maximize, the return on their investments, because it's very costly. So there are a lot of opportunities for them. And I believe that 5G can bring a lot of potential. It can shift them from offering legacy pipes, like I've explained before, to tailored and segmented connectivity, for cloud native solution. And it opens the door for them, I believe, to provide diverse solutions for the IoT verticals. The problem is that they cannot do it alone because, again, it's not their bread and butter. So I believe that, with what I see is that big players such as Vodafone, Verizon, Orange, and more, They are heavily investing into 5G and SA and building the necessary ecosystems. But other smaller players, tier ones and tier twos, they're still in the early stages, and it's difficult for them, to build out that ecosystem.
That makes
so
sense.
It's going to be very difficult for them to compete against those largest ecosystem. So for those ones, I believe that they need a strong partnership and deep integration with players like us, PCCW Global, because together, a telco that is enabled to orchestrate end-to-end together with a mobility player that has all in their hands to facilitate packages to the mobile market, we can deliver a complete full ecosystem to the market. Yeah.
So we have a turnkey option for those MNOs and MVNOs that they can just take off our shelf.
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent. Oh, cool. All right. Well, the last part I was hoping you could speak to is, I guess, just whatever you can share about that story of sort of inventing or discovering, or how EdgeSIM was sort of delivered or innovated as a team.
Yeah, the good thing about the team is that we have domain experts on the orchestration, on the mobility side, on the network segmentation. We have all in our hands within the organization to make or to bring all of those, to make the puzzle together. And we have been looking at the design for, I think, 6 months to 1 year to see how we can do this in the most flexible way. And we managed to find a foundation that allows us to fully manage the SIM profile end to end, from the IP segmentation and classification to the organization of the subnets, to slicing the subnet into smaller pieces, providing the flexibility to share this across multiple customers, and then to add any subnet, which we call a site, to a product which is called Cloud Router. So what we do mainly is we facilitate the full automation to connect any SIM to our cloud ecosystem using Cloud Router. And that makes it quite unique because you can actually do it in a few clicks.
No, that's critical, and sounds really, really unique. I guess give us a peek under the hood. Did that involve, like, finding secondhand equipment on eBay or something that you installed in your garage and tested in your free time? I mean, what does that look like for you?
No, we have been using existing building blocks, so there is no new systems that we needed or anything else. We took a little bit our experience, which we had from the past, because we have been active on the MVNO sites. We know how it works. So we took that experience with us, but for the rest, we have been using the existing techniques, integrations, which we can support through the life cycle. So there's nothing specific which we invented. We just brought everything together and we made everything working. So for us, it's not something that we invented. It's the foundation which we use, which exists and which we're applying.
Amazing. Yeah, I think earlier you mentioned kind of putting those puzzle pieces together. It reminds me of Lego blocks, right? Assembling a Lego set, so to speak. But yeah, we already had all the pieces.
No, the difficulty and the complexity lies with the SDN controller that controls the whole thing, right? So it's not just only the mobility side. You also need to orchestrate your clouds, multi-clouds, your SaaS applications, your data centers. And what we have done, we added, the puzzle, which is, the breakout to EdgeSIM, to mobility. And this makes it unique. It's you actually make use of existing components and functions, and you add specific elements that bring something unique to your topology. And this is just a start, because now we're going into 5G. I'm preparing myself towards that, the team as well, and we have other fantastic things that will come in the future.
Excellent. Yeah, no, you make a really good point. That's why we pair EdgeSIM with Cloud Router.
Exactly.
To kind of extend the rest of the way to sort of the cloud mile of the solution.
That's correct.
Awesome. Well, no, this has been a great discussion. We've covered a lot of ground in a pretty short amount of time. Anything else you'd like to add?
Oh, I think you fully covered it, Trent. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for taking the time, Bart. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.